Welcome to the Judgment Free Zone. You've downloaded the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast, episode 22 for September 5th, 2022.
Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
Recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois, you're listening to the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast with Matt and Amy. Come and learn and share a journey with two former craft beer enthusiasts who went from daily drinkers to teetotalers and basically never lost their love for their life together.
Hey, a freak show!
Well, hello, childrens. Welcome back to the freak show that is the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast. I am Matt, along with the always lovely Coach Amy. How are you, my love?
I am awesome. I'm amazing.
I'm amazed I still run out of weird ways to say that.
Let me just say, your energy seems a little low right now.
Why?
I don't know. You tell me. What's going on?
I don't know. I guess I didn't get in the proper hype mode for podcast.
Yeah, come on. Let's just get up and bounce in place.
Yeah, that's not very podcast friendly, I just have to say.
Probably not.
Just have to say. Well, welcome back to Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast, where, you know, you heard the comedian, here's your sign. You found a sign, didn't you, Amy?
So we're going to start with that.
Well, you love the home goods.
Oh my gosh, I love home goods.
Ladies love the home goods.
I love home goods.
And of course, as I always complain, everything in home goods has words. Why the whole world needs to have words? I know it's a coffee cup. I know this is the bathroom. I know that's a kitchen.
And
Stop.
it's just like not only home goods, but just as, what is it, Hobby Lobby.
Right.
We did a whole podcast, remember, where you went around and
Yes.
we were doing with the whole sign.
Yes.
So we could even put that
Lots
in there.
of signs.
In the show notes, because it's funny.
I ran across, they have, you know, a lot of women shop there, of course. So we found this little sign. What's your little sign? You didn't buy it, but what's the sign say?
I did not buy it, but I would have bought it probably. Well, maybe not. I probably wouldn't have. I wouldn't have
not
bought
beforehand,
it.
But it says what?
But it says, I would have thought it was funny. Wine is how classy people get wasted. Seriously.
I
Remember
know.
Wine Club?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the dreaded Wine Club?
It wasn't dreaded. It sounded like a good idea at the time.
It sounded like a good idea.
We're going to be sophisticated.
And it ended in a sloppy, disgusting
We're
mess.
sophisticated drunk people.
Yeah.
But
anyways.
But I'm looking at that. I think maybe a different perspective nowadays of like, I'm not actually, why would I put that up? I'm not going to put
Well,
that.
it's just like the wine glass, a little thing that popped up in my feed from a few years ago. You're not drinking alone if you're drinking with your corgi.
Well, at least it's not like, I get wasted.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's all these little passes of,
not like drinking
it's
alone.
okay, it's all right. And I get it. Some of them are funny, some of them are not. And we're both in different places now, so that's okay. I mean,
There you go.
yeah,
They play in that mommy wine
it's
culture.
that, you know what? Yeah, totally.
I know, and we're recording this on the day we're releasing it, so it's probably, it is released later in the day than normal.
It is later. We apologize, but
It's Labor Day weekend, kids.
Yep.
Which ironically, I choose not to labor on Labor Day weekend.
And I think the other thing is yes, we want it to be consistent, but we also, this is a hobby.
Yeah.
So
we're clearly not making any money doing this.
This is a hobby, something that we are enjoying to do together. And I want you to not be stressed out because you're a perfectionist when it comes to this kind of stuff. And, you know, is it good enough? Is it good enough?
Good enough's good enough.
I think that's absolutely
So
right.
Our tens of listeners will forgive us.
Yes, thank you, tens. Thank you, tens of listeners. And this podcast. Oh, we're not good. Are we there yet? We're not there yet because we have to do. We do not have an outline. I'm jumping all over the place. I need to have steps.
No, don't lie. Notes don't help you at all.
No, they do. They're a guideline.
They're just all over the place.
Because then I could have looked and said, "Oh no, we're not there yet."
Where you can be wherever you want to be, Amy.
No, let's just talk about the drink of the week.
Okay, let's do the drink of the week. We're there. We're at the drink of the week. What is your drink of the week? Since you brought
My
it up?
drink of the week is the Untitled Art non-alcoholic Citra Session.
I think the NA part's rhetorical, but yes.
Is it rhetorical?
I would hope so on the Alcohol Free Podcast.
On the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast.
Here's your beer. No.
Yep. No, it's very good. It's a
What's
nice
Citra Session.
Citra Session. It's good.
I'm not sure what all that means.
I don't even. Does it have a little
I think a
description?
session is like IPA-ish, but sessions are usually lighter. Of course, that's not an IPA, but the Citra would have.
Isn't this interesting? Even on this, they have the Surgeon General.
Well, because it contains less than 0.5%, so if
True.
it contains any, they probably have to put that on there.
Mm-hmm. And it says, about, birth defects and then the consumption. We would be drinking a lot of this to get a DUI.
Oh, God. And Untitled Art's not inexpensive, so that'd be very expensive to get DUI. I don't even know if you could drink enough to get a DUI.
I don't know.
I don't think you could drink it faster than your body can process it.
Yeah, I don't know. But
mine is not this glass. Actually, ironically, oh good, it's all worn off. It was a Grey Goose glass. Is Clean Co's. Clean Co is it? But Clean Co is the brand. I'm doing a great job.
Is this from?
This is from Hy-Vee.
Oh,
so this is clean. They call it Clean G. It's their gin alternative. Only 10 calories. It comes in this cool green bottle.
Just like the gin.
Just like gin. Just like Tanqueray. Tanqueray does have an NA zero alcohol one. I want to get.
We're gonna have to travel there.
If anybody in the UK wants to find a way to get it to me cheaper than $50 shipping, I can't bring myself to do that. But this is really good. I'm not a fan of I forget what brand that tonic, the little tonic cans I got. Not as good as like the Schweppes and Canadian Canada Dry.
Is it like is Quest or something?
Oh, something like that. I don't know. It's not the gin is good. The gin, air quotes, is good, but
the botanicals. And honestly, if you're looking for a gin alternative, I think for the most part any hard alcohol, they don't hit quite as close as the beers do. That's just what I found. We have made the alternative Bloody Mary with the gin.
Yeah, that works out pretty well.
And I think, when you add like a little bit of that Tabasco and all of that.
It really, by the time you put all that crap in a Bloody Mary, you don't really notice the alcohol anyway.
Well, and considering the fact that, most people drink vodka.
True, which you really wouldn't notice that either.
Mm-hmm.
So see, you can put whatever you want in it. Makes you feel good that you poured a little extra. And for some reason, I still use a shot glass. Not like it matters.
Well, to keep the flavor balance correct.
A flavor balance. Oh, good, Amy. A flavor balance. Thank you.
The flavor balance,
Okay, since you're in charge of our non-note notes, where are we at? Ready for the interview?
Are we ready for the interview?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Susan's interview is fantastic. I love this. Is a great interview, deep interview.
Yes, this is deep. This is a story of we think things will not happen to us, but they can.
Yep.
And we can become very clouded in our judgment. And this is one of those where when I heard her story for the first time, I sat and cried because I knew that this could have happened to me.
You don't have, her story is good because it shows you don't have to end up under a bridge to have trouble with alcohol.
No, her story is one of those where what held me back for years was the whole adage of I didn't resonate that I was not an alcoholic. And I put air quotes on that I wasn't somebody who had lost my job and was drinking out of a brown paper bag. I was quote unquote a normal drinker. And as we all know, that it's alcohol use disorder now. It's on a spectrum. And I don't know. I hope you enjoy this. You
gotta be very far down the spectrum to have problems.
Yeah, and I hope everyone enjoys this. I'm going to just do her bio right now. It's Susan Joy. Susan is a certified This Naked Mind recovery coach. And she also is an integrative nutrition health coach. She has her master's degree in counseling and is experienced working as a therapist. Susan specializes in coaching women who are struggling with their relationship with alcohol as they navigate through the divorce process or the end of a significant relationship. Susan's own drinking became problematic when she found herself stuck in the cycle of marital indecision, questioning her marriage and struggling to decide to stay in the relationship or divorce. Susan recognizes that many women turn to alcohol to relieve the stress of this painful process or find themselves over drinking as they end a relationship and set off to begin a new chapter. Through the methodology of This Naked Mind, Susan found true freedom from alcohol in 2020. She is a newly empty nester in Cleveland, Ohio, living with a smart and funny golden retriever named Maggie, and she has another golden retriever, and I'm not sure I remember his name. Finn. I think it's Finn.
Sure. I have no idea.
And if I'm incorrect,
So
that's
be it.
okay. They're so cute, though. Absolutely adorable. And I'm just going to put this in here as well. You can find her on her website, which is susanjoycoaching.com. I don't want to forget that because I forgot to ask her at the beginning or at the end of the interview.
Well, there you go. Got that in the front.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just take it away. Today, I would like to welcome a very, very good friend of mine, Susan Joy, and she is a certified This Naked Mind coach, and she's also a therapist. And I'm just going to ask you what we ask everybody at the beginning of this. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, your family, and what you do for fun now.
Sure. Thanks, Amy and Matt, for having me on this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. I am a certified This Naked Mind coach, and I was a practicing therapist for a number of years. But after having children, I sort of retired from that occupation. But I am now living outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in a small suburb, Willoughby. And I have two children. My oldest daughter is 26, out in San Diego, working full-time now. And my youngest daughter is 19 and just left home for her second year of college. So I am an empty nester, but somehow I have filled my empty nest with two golden retrievers, one of which is, actually Finn is his name. He just turned 6 months old. So, yeah, he's keeping me on my toes.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy for sure.
Yeah, and the older golden is going to be 6, so big H band, just like my kids. But anyway, I'll start by sharing my story and how I ended up becoming a This Naked Mind coach and a little bit about my journey with alcohol. I was originally from Massachusetts, and my whole family is from there. And I just really had a pretty normal, happy childhood. No major traumatic events. I'm an only child. My dad was a high school guidance counselor. My mom was a high school French teacher. And both of them did drink. I never saw them drunk, but they would always have their 5 p.m. Manhattan. They were very routine oriented, and they would have their Manhattan with the maraschino cherries in it and the bitters and all that entails. And that's what I grew up with. And I never saw them drunk, but that was the daily ritual. That was what they did when we went out to eat. They'd order a drink. And I remember as a little kid, like pulling out the maraschino cherry and wanting it from their cocktail and tasting it and think like, why did you ruin this cherry and drop it in this, whatever this is, it tastes horrible. And then too, another story I often share is that when 5 o'clock would roll around, I was probably 6 or 7. I clearly remember this. They would make me my own kitty cocktail with my own little maraschino cherry and a Shirley Temple. And I would have it with my Pepperidge Farm goldfish and a little cheese. And I'd be watching reruns of the Brady Bunch. Now I'm giving away my age. But right then I was becoming routine oriented myself, which later translated into my nightly glass of Chardonnay and cheese and crackers. So that's a little bit about like my childhood was really pretty easygoing. I do remember, I'm Irish Catholic. Everyone pretty much drank, but my one cousin, Barbara, and I remember my parents talking about her like she was some sort of bizarre unicorn. Like, Barbara doesn't drink. We don't really know why, but she just doesn't do it. And at the big Christmas party at my aunt's house, everyone would be drinking, and I'd associate it with this like tremendous time. And strange, Barbara doesn't drink. So I just thought that was interesting and how the whole family looked at it. But then fast forward, I had my first drink, pretty typical in high school when I was 14, 15 years old. The drinking age then was 21, but we all managed to somehow get it. And I remember dressing up one of my friends like in her mother's trench coat and this hat and sending her into the liquor store and she could always come out with something for us. And, we'd sit around bonfires and the police might come and we'd all run. And it was just associated with good times and craziness of high school. And I graduated in 1985 and, very typical beer. Never really, I overdid it on occasion, but it was never during the week. I was always pretty much a really good student and knew my dad was a guidance counselor, so knew I was going to go to college and all of that. I ended up going to a Catholic university in Connecticut on the East Coast, and drinking just continued. It was a lot of Irish Catholics it was Fairfield University in Connecticut. And instead of having sororities and fraternities, we would rent out these beach houses once we were sophomores and right on the water on Long Island Sound. And we'd have a beach house with there was, 8 of us girls in it. And the drinking just expanded to the weekend included Thursday. I think that's a definition in college. And drank through college, had some moments of experiencing a blackout here and there of oh my God, I'm so hungover. Why did I do this? But I could look at other people, particularly some of the boys, and think, and even one of my roommates, they'd stay out to 2 a.m. drinking. By midnight, 1, I was like, I want to go back to my room and so I was never the worst of the worst. I was just pretty typical. I met my husband in college, and then he had gone to West Point. And when he graduated, we made the decision to get married. And I was pretty young. I was 22. I just graduated from college. Looking back, I would now tell my daughter that it's too young. But at the time, it was either a long distance date or get married. He finished at West Point, went to flight school. We were all over the place with him in the Army. And really during those years, we were married 7 years before I had my first daughter. And that's when wine kind of began to creep into that's when I got my master's in counseling, worked as a therapist, and it would creep into okay, you've had a long day at work, seeing clients. This is my treat when I get home. But there was always this voice in my head that said, why do you want to do this every day? Why on Monday or Tuesday, when you decide you're not going to have wine, why do you feel deprived? Why does this suck? I'd sign up for yoga in an evening class on purpose so I would know I would have a night off, because I didn't want to be that everyday drinker at that point. But of course, after having kids and going through all that, went through some bouts of postpartum depression with both my children, pretty significant. Doctors never mentioned you don't want to drink. I would ask, can I have my nightly glass of wine? And sure, while you're taking an antidepressant for postpartum depression. But then it just became this. And then I should say, my husband left the Army and was traveling a ton for corporate, long trips to Australia, Hong Kong. And by the time I had 2 kids, that wine became, I just need something at the end of the day for me. I was building up some resentment for being pretty much a single parent, all of that going on. Eventually I decided, not to do work as a therapist anymore, stay home full time with the kids. And then the wine became, if I play with Thomas Tank Engine one more time today, I'm going to lose my mind. So it was sort of an escape from the drudgery of parenting. And I even to this day, I think if I ever see Barney and a big purple dinosaur somewhere, I'm going to have a craving of some sort, because there was such 5 o'clock Arthur or Barney came on and it was mom's time to do her thing. And it went on like that. And that really, and Amy, I know you've talked about this before, that was becoming the height of the mummy wine culture. And we just all thought it was somewhat normal. We weren't yet drinking at play dates or morning drinking, but we would organize. I was always a member of mom's clubs, and we'd organize book club and bunko, and it was all an excuse to have time away from our kids and to drink together. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Experienced many of those.
Yeah. We'd actually meet at a bookstore, and then we'd go to a restaurant after, and slowly, the meeting at the bookstore to discuss the book would become 2 minutes and then out the door to the, it's like the time just, yeah. So very, very typical at that time, doing things everybody else did. And yes, I always had some of what Annie refers to as cognitive dissonance. There was that voice in my head that said, you like this too much. I remember going to like a wedding where there was no booze served and thinking along with everybody else, well, this sucks. What time can we escape from here and go get a drink? And part of me knew that was not normal, but I didn't want to look at it because I thought alcohol was the elixir of life and it was how I got by and how I had a good time, all the things. So fast forward to about 2011, I'm hitting my early 40s. Really at that point, the kids are getting older. Let's see, Sarah was around 10, Lilith was in high school, and I started to question my marriage. I started to really wonder, and I think a lot of people do this as we get into middle age, is this what my life is going to look like forever? And is this what I really want? There were a lot of problems between the two of us that just got buried with raising the kids. You focus on that and you're so busy. He's traveling and didn't really look at our relationship. And then I should say too, he left corporate and started his own business out of our home that like grew tremendously. But we went from him traveling for months at a time to him home in the house full time. So I don't know how healthy that is for any marriage, but I know it takes two to make a relationship work and also to make one come to an end. And I want to take my responsibility, but I just want to share that was my state of mind at that time. And I started doing more outside the home. I was a high school and college tennis player. I went back to playing tennis at a club. I drastically increased my social activity as the kids were getting older, and he did not want a part of that. So that had us grow apart. So, but at that point, I would say I shifted a little bit to drinking alcohol to numb some of that. Really, it was cognitive dissonance around my marriage. And I remember going to a bookstore, looking up divorce for dummies. Like, what would this even entail? And it looked god awful, like thoughts of, how's this going to affect my kids financially? I hadn't worked for a while, all of that. And it was a hard place to be. It was a really hard when you aren't really in a relationship and you aren't really out of it. And that's when I kind of drank to not deal with it. So in 2011, I did decide to take the preliminary steps to file for divorce. And that winter, I'll never forget this. My ex-husband was like, let's take a trip, the two of us, and go away and see how it goes and what we're doing. And we did that. And when I came back that night from the trip, I had the opportunity to still play tennis. We had this weekly routine where we would go to the club, all play tennis, and then cross the street to a restaurant after and have drinks and appetizers. And I was really tired from the trip and still decided to go play tennis and had my typical, it was always about 3 glasses of Chardonnay. And on the way home, there was a construction zone and I got stopped for speeding. And I was over 0.08. They wanted to breathalyze me when I said I had been at a restaurant, and I was charged with a DUI. And as you can imagine, I mean, it was just first time anything like that had happened to my life, very traumatic. What am I going to do? All the thoughts. And after I spent one night in jail and my husband came and got me out and said he at the time was close with an attorney and said, we can get this maybe dropped to reckless operation. We need to call so-and-so and they can help you. But if you want my help financially, if you want my help with this guy, Tim, I want you to take back everything you've done in terms of getting an attorney and separating bank accounts and looking forward to filing for divorce. And I agreed to do that because I was just at the point of, I'm a mess. I need to take a step back. So that's what happened at that point. And then I really curtailed my drinking and driving, but not to the, I honestly, and I have so much shame still in this, I did not take it seriously enough. I was like, this was a one-time thing. It's never going to happen to me again. Other friends told me, oh, that happened to me once. You know, I got it dropped. I went to court. It was all over. 6 months later, the night before I was scheduled to have my license reinstated, I went back to tennis, played, went to the restaurant across the street again, same routine as every Wednesday. But I come out of there that night after the 3 glasses of wine. And I have to say, I mean, these are large glasses of wine because going there every week, we got to know the bartender. We hung out with him. And it was September and a thunder and lightning storm. Well, like it is today, if you hear background noise, that's actual thunder here. It was that blinding rain that you cannot see 2 feet in front of your windshield. And you know, you should pull over to the side of the road and wait for it to subside because you can't see clearly, which I did not do because my feeling was I don't have my license back yet. I shouldn't have been going to tennis. And I kept going. And at that point, what happened to me is one of those things that you think can never happen to you and changed my life forever. And I hit another car head on and caused a major car crash. It was a time when, I mean, time just stood still. I knew both of us went to the hospital afterwards, and I knew my life was never going to be the same. And it was a long unfolding, and I'll keep it somewhat brief. But I faced time in prison because of the fact I had a prior stop, and because I was driving on driving privileges and a suspended license because I was due to get my license back the next morning. So the legal process unfolded over the course of it was about 8 months, I think. And in May 2012, I was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison and had to say goodbye to my kids and face the consequences of what I had done. Both of us had been injured. The other woman, her injuries were, she had to have surgery on her leg. Her injuries were more significant. And I was able to speak at my sentencing and apologize to her and have good communication with both her and her mother. They ended up hugging me and appreciating everything I said. But at that point, I knew the judge was going to make an example of me for drinking and driving, which I can't blame him. So I was given a mandatory sentence, which it's kind of crazy because when you grow up and you think of who goes to prison, you go to prison, and if you're really good, if you're a good inmate, you get released early. It's not really like that. If you are issued a mandatory sentence, if your victim of a crime wants you to have a mandatory sentence, then that's what you're given, and you don't have any options to get out early. What you do or don't choose to do in prison. So that's what happened. And it was one of the hardest things. It's gotten easier to talk about as time has gone on, but it was traumatic, as I'm sure anyone can imagine. It's something I thought would never happen in my life. I went from, even the newspaper picked up on it and was, soccer mom, drunk driving, crashed her Volvo into, like, what difference does it matter what car I was driving? After glasses of Chardonnay, it was like, and I think some of that at the time was beyond shameful, but when I share it now, I think first off, it can give people hope that if something like this has happened to them, that you can get through it. But it also shows that who you think of as a prison inmate with a violent felony. That's me. That was gray area drinking at book club. So I guess that is one of the messages I want to get across. And I served my 2.5 years, came home to my children, ended up getting divorced. And the craziest thing of all of it is after all the AA I went through, that's pretty much what the court does. You got to go to meetings, you have to go to intensive outpatient. It was all AA, it was all disease model. When I got out, my biggest goal was to hide and let nobody ever find out about what I had been through, and to be able to just drink responsibly, to be able to be like everyone else and never drink and drive again. That was the line in the sand. But I saw no reason, because my beliefs about alcohol had never changed. I still saw it as something valuable in my life that provided benefits that I was deprived of for 2.5 years.
And
so
then
my mindset, go
yeah,
ahead.
and then that you felt, I mean, it was your fault is what you thought. I'm not saying that this was but it was your fault. It wasn't drinking alcohol. The messages from your entire life were that alcohol was something of benefit to you. Like, just, I mean, growing up, like you said, sitting there with your kitty cocktail.
Oh, your youth is like a carbon copy of mine.
Yeah. I mean, and that to me, I mean, and it's so benign, but it's not.
Right. And it's so interesting too, with the whole model I went through with AA. And I don't want to bash AA in any way, shape, or form, because I know it's done miraculous things for people. And I think the community support I got through AA was significant, because I was allowed to attend. I was on house arrest before I was sentenced. And those AA meetings and connections I made there were huge to me at the time I was waiting to be sentenced. But when I got out, I hadn't changed my mindset about alcohol. And I was told by former friends, my now ex-husband, everyone said, you are an alcoholic, you can never drink again. And people were questioning, well, she must have been like drinking in the morning. She must have been drinking more than we really knew. You know, she had bottles stashed somewhere. There was none of that. But people wanted to look at what happened to me and say, oh no, that's not me. Because who wants to think about that happening to themselves? So when I got out, I say this because the more people pushed against me, you can never drink again, the more I said, no, you're wrong. I am going to show you that I can go to a restaurant and have 1 or 2 glasses of wine. And I did that for 5 years, 6 years. I just slid back into my life and met new people, moved to a new location, never told them anything that had happened to me, just blended in. And looking back, I can see I was also using it to numb some of the hard, obviously traumatic feelings I had in reestablishing my relationship with my 2 children. I mean, when I went away, Sarah was in 3rd grade. When I came out, she was in 6th grade. There was so much pain there for both of us. It was hard to face at times. So fast forward to 2017, I had never drank and drove again. I was very cautious, but I was getting into my 50s and menopause was rearing its ugly head. And I would just sometimes go out with friends and have 3 glasses, 4 glasses, and be hungover and be like, I was gaining weight. I was 20 pounds heavier than I had ever been in my life. But I was going to Orange Theory. I was going to yoga. I was going there hungover at times. And I just reached a point after one night being out in downtown Willoughby where we all walked. I was living in a condo, left my phone in a bar, something so stupid that I've done too many times to count. Had my daughter's last high school volleyball game the next morning, had no phone, bar not open until noon. had to go to AT&T, get a new phone in AT&T, all dehydrated, hungover, going, you're too old for this crap. And in the background, I had also been seeing things on my Facebook feed from Annie Grace and This Naked Mind. And I had taken a look at the book earlier when I saw it. And I thought, what an amazing approach. This woman is finally doing something that is very much needed. So that day, October 31st, 2020, I decided I am signing up for the live alcohol experiment. And away we go to try this and to do it on my own terms, where the mindset's completely different. And I felt so much better instantaneously. And that's where my story starts to match up pretty much what you went through, Amy, and what other coaches we know have gone through. It just clicked for me. It made me question all my beliefs around alcohol and what I truly wanted. And it stuck. I did This Naked Minds Path program after my November live alcohol experiment. And at the time, the Path program was a full year. And I signed up for the coaches training and was in with you for our training. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. Crazy.
Yeah.
Really, so much.
And my thought is, and like you even said, you were drinking responsibly afterwards. You were going out with friends, but never driving. And for me and Matt, like that was our big thing. We're drinking, responsibly. So we would go to all of these events, make sure that we either Ubered or we, drove, but the toll it was taking on me internally, because I was just like you, there was things that you start to drink to numb. And I feel like it's this progression for a lot of us who grew up and were teens in the 80s. Everything that you did, I'm sitting there going, oh, I just did that in the cornfields. I mean, it was just a different location. And then, you just progress through life on a very similar path. And I could have had that exact same thing happen, but it would have been me going out to either a business after hours or meeting up with friends or something like that. But it didn't happen, but it could have very easily. And that's where I want people to realize that, you're this drinking responsibly, that all came from the alcohol industry. And I was probably like you, I got really mad when I found that out, because I'm like, no, you're selling me this that is going to, I don't know, it's putting me and others, and I'm not taking the blame off myself at all, but we're sold such a lie for forever. We've been sold this lie that it's okay and you'll be fine. And if you're not fine, well, that's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting. The people could look at your prison story of, well, I don't need to quit drinking. I haven't gotten a DUI. I haven't been in prison. Surely I don't have a problem. But you're talking like 3 glasses of wine, right? I'm like, you hadn't drank a fifth of scotch and went barreling down the highway, right? Like you were, in your own mind anyway, drinking responsibly, right? So,
right.
It's interesting. And I think that headline of that article, from my perspective, almost sounds like, of course, it's attention grabbing, but I think trying to point a light to, you're driving a decent car, you're a soccer mom, like here's not that person living under the bridge who's doing this, right? Like it is that mommy wine culture type person who's running in, to this. And, and it could have easily been us, right? We just, the ones who haven't you're just lucky is all it is. And one day your luck runs out, right?
Yeah. And it's not like, to some of the classes they make you take, there's a statistic of how many people drink and drive and get away with it before something like that happens. So yeah, clearly I did it. I mean, I remember in college driving between West Point and Fairfield, and I shouldn't have been driving back and forth there at times.
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, it's just so difficult, I think, as a society for us to look at, because there's so much cognitive dissonance between drink responsibly and then these things happening. And people want to think it can't be them, so they want to label you an alcoholic. And we're talking like people like my doctors. And I remember before going to prison, I was like determined, because I had read that the one thing you have to worry about in prison is not getting good medical care. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get like my mammogram, do all this stuff before. And like on my chart with my OBGYN, it wrote like, he had wrote something like, and I saw it when I got out, like alcoholic, or like he talked to me about being an alcoholic. And I mean, this is someone that had gone through med school. I since left him because I was like, and my attorney, well, you're an alcoholic and now go to AA meetings, and the more signatures you can get at meetings, the better it'll look to the judge. And then my attorney goes to the bar. And it's like, what's the definition of alcoholic? It must include paper bag and severe car accident. Severe car crash is definitely one of the signs, but there's no blood test. There's no blood test to tell me if I'm an alcoholic. The whole thing is just, and that's why I say now, like, it's a spectrum. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all somewhere along the spectrum, and it's now called alcohol use disorder, and we're all on the train. My train just crashed real fast, and it was the express train to rock bottom. But looking back, I would not be where I'm at today. And the peace I have in my life now, do I regret it? Absolutely. I hurt someone else. I hurt my children, but I can't change it. And I'm going to use what happened to live my life differently now and to help other people that are going through this. And it's just so in alignment with the work I've done in the past as a therapist and I love it all. I love the science of it, the coaching other people, the friends I've made. It's been great. And I've slowly rebuilt my relationship with my two children. And in fact, I went to brunch last Sunday with my daughter before she left for college, and we talked about drinking and talked about the addictive nature of it, and all sorts of things. So it's been rebuilt. It's never going to be the same, but nothing is. Everything changes, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful truly to like be alive and be sitting here with you, because I could have easily died that night.
Yeah.
I'm curious what would you say would be one long-term side effect of having, I'm assuming, a felony DUI, right? Your record and having gone to prison. What's that? What's one long-term thing that, you can overcome certain things in the short term when you get out, but what's kind of something that sticks with you and kind of continues to maybe haunt you?
I often turn to humor when I'm in a dark place. I think it got me through some of this. And your question just made me think of going through airport security checkpoint with TSA when you have to stand like this, and you're like, I'm fully expecting them to ask me to take off my clothes at any point and, bend over and touch my toes. And I'm a little freaked out. I don't like traveling. I've gotten better at going through airport security, but when I got out, I had a really hard time getting a job. I was trying to get different types of jobs. And in fact, as a part-time thing at one point when my daughter was in kindergarten, I got certified as an esthetician, doing skincare, facials. I've always been fascinated by that sort of thing, and sort of did it for fun. And I work part-time at a spa. And when I got out, I kept up that license, and I went to try to work for a dermatologist in our area that's highly respected. And I went into my little interview thinking, you have to disclose, because they're going to pull a record, disclose everything. And she was ready to hire me, but then it turned into a complete disaster. She had someone else call me and tell me that they serve alcohol at their Christmas parties, and she was not comfortable with my history. She was worried about it reflecting on her reputation, all of that. I was like really, really kind of traumatized by that. Like, I am not going to get a job. And then I got rejected at a couple other places that were more national chains that had a no felon policy. So there aren't a lot of options. The restaurant industry is really good about hiring people that have a record, and certain companies they're good about that. But I fortunately was in, and I couldn't drive for 3 years when I got out. I had to wait to get my license back. So that in a suburb, as you can imagine, was a challenge. But fortunately, by this time we were divorced, and I was in a position of getting support and not having to go back to work right away, and thinking I wanted to go back to work as a therapist, and applied to Case Western here in Cleveland and got in for a second master's degree in social work. And when it was time to interview for an internship, Cleveland Clinic was going to nix me because of the felony. But fortunately, I wasn't too far into the program and decided not to do it. It was really expensive. And I was in my 50s thinking, do I really need to spend all this money? So that's when I decided I could do what I want to do in life through getting my certification as a coach without going through all that. But sorry, that was sort of a long answer to your question, but that is how it really impacts you. And I do still have, like, I'm opening up now more in this community and don't feel so much shame. But I mean, I don't run around telling my neighbor over there that they live next door to, a felon. In fact, she told me the guy across the street, she's like, I heard he had a DUI and some history. I'm like, oh,
no, not that.
no.
My gosh.
Can you imagine?
I mean,
yeah.
That kind of, I mean, it's not her fault either. Like, she has this reaction because that's everything we've been taught. Oh, that person, they did this. And now
I would have said the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, and
how'd you let this happen? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How did you let this happen to you? Why did you do that? And all along, here we are drinking something that's highly addictive that I no longer, I mean, it's alcohol and drugs. I just don't even call it alcohol anymore. It's drugs. When you address it really what it is, and I'm not anti-drinking. If you want to drink, but I just want everybody to be completely aware of what you're doing. And, it's so, everybody just thinks it's so much fun. And I don't know if you do this, but I will be out and I look out now into a crowd of people and I'm like, are you dying inside like I was?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the thoughts that I have now. And it's like, I know I can't project that onto people, but I know that there are people. I mean, clearly that was the thing that kept me held back, and you held back as well. So we didn't want other people to know what we were going through. We thought it was just us. And then when we got into a community, we're like, oh, we're not alone. And then when you got into, and I got into the community with This Naked Mind, it was like, oh my gosh, we're free. We don't have to, we don't have to have that stigma. I mean, because for me, I can't even imagine going into AA. I mean, that's what held me back. I could not ever. I was like, I can't call myself an alcoholic. I will not carry that, because my fear was, if I walk into that room, even though it's Alcoholics Anonymous, everyone will know that I went to this meeting. Somehow people will know. And then forever, I will be an alcoholic. I was like, I can't do that.
Well, I think the challenge, not that it's AA, but I think the challenge when you go through the system is you're not mentally ready to quit, right? You're told you have to, and everything's you have to. Well, your natural reaction is, oh, I don't, you have to forever. That's hard to swallow, right? And that's one thing personally kept me from stopping for a long time. It's like, why, forever? Forever's a long time, people, right? Never and forever. And so I think that's the challenge when you go through the system, regardless of what system they're putting you through. It's like, you have to. And it's like, you're under this hammer of requirement. And it's like, that's not training you. That's just forcing you, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's probably right. When you came out, it's like your mind shift hadn't changed, right? You just
No.
followed you'd done what you were supposed to do, not what your brain wanted to do, right?
Right. Right. And that's why the change I made with the whole philosophy behind This Naked Mind was really for me. And I don't have any desire for it anymore. And fortunately, I can talk to my daughter about all that. And yeah,
Yeah. And you and I have been so blessed. We're in a group together and we do a coaching call together on Thursdays in a group. And to know that there are women, even older than us, who have found freedom. And one gal shared her story of quitting drinking in her 70s, I believe, and how she was just like, every day is magical. Every day I get to do something different. I have so much time. I can do whatever I want. And then her sharing her example of being with her daughter, who is, I think, 50. And then her daughter has started to change her relationship with alcohol, and that her influence on her daughter just by leading by example and just moving forward, because she was a gray area drinker as well. And those are the stories that I want to tell people. It's like, you're not caught in this web. You can get out of this, and it's okay. It's okay to not drink alcohol.
Well, and I'm also curious, you're I think you're a cautionary tale / lesson to be learned / success story, right? Like you went in this valley, but you found your way out type thing. There's got to be a number of people who aren't as mentally or emotionally strong who just can't do it, right? Like it doesn't get better. They don't necessarily learn. They do the system and they can't find jobs or whatever, and it just spirals in a negative way, right? I mean, it's not.
Oh yeah.
Not everybody ends up like you, right?
Yeah, I mean, the recidivism rate for incarceration is huge. And I think the longer you're in there, I mean, it's so interesting everything I saw on the inside, but it becomes a community of itself where there's so much like getting out and coming back in and going. A lot of it was opiate use, pills turning into heroin, and then committing crimes, trying to get drugs and all of that. That was so big. But yeah, the success rate coming out, and really all I was exposed to in prison was AA. It's not good. It's, I mean, I was so fortunate to have my now ex-husband even agree that he would allow me to come back to my home. He could have said at that point, no, sorry, but you have to put someone down, as this is a responsible person taking care of you. This is where I'm living, or else you go to like what they call in prison a halfway house. And I would have been starting from square one. But at that time, we had been married 25 years. His business he had started grew tremendously. And fortunately, I was able to obtain a good attorney and get a settlement that was fair. And my ex and I are able to work together now for our children. But people aren't as fortunate as I am that are in some of those situations. And it's really sad. I would like eventually to see This Naked Mind within the prison system. And I know some judges are using it. There's one judge, I forget what state it was in, but Annie talks about he like assigns the book as part of someone's sentencing. And I am coaching in This Naked Minds Path program right now. And one of the participants had reached out to me and said, I need to get some paperwork signed off on and information from This Naked Mind to show the court. And I thought, how cool is that they're not getting something signed at AA? And found out that This Naked Mind as an organization has a whole packet that they provided that person to then take to say, I've been doing something. So
That is
things
so
things
awesome.
are going to change, but I just think that is so amazing. And it shows that change is coming and that there's more than one. This should be a wellness conversation more
Yes.
than any everything else. And the thing, I think so many people I coach, they look at the woman in the fancy restaurant with the nice glass of wine and think, I just want to be her. Why can't I be her? And I tell them that was me sitting there going, I really want a third glass, but I shouldn't have a third glass because I have to get up tomorrow and I drank too much yesterday. And, why can't I cut back? Like, the turmoil in that woman's head is so loud that you don't really want it to be her.
Yeah. And now we have, with Instagram and everything that, social media. So we have, just that example. Oh, I want to be that person sitting there. Or I see this reel and, oh, it's so much fun. And they're jumping into their wine glass and they deserve this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this glorification of this liquid.
And sometimes it's like, I know you're kind of being ironic, funny, but if you think it through, and to your point, like what's going on in their head, it's actually probably kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're actually probably, personifying what's really happening versus, poking fun at like what you're not doing. No, you probably are really have that problem. And that's why you're doing this. And it's,
Yeah. And when you look at that, like you just said, oh, there's that image. And I remember a point thinking you and I were going out somewhere and sitting there and we were having a drink and we were outside and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And I remember distinctly the next day, for some reason that stuck out, how horrible I felt that next day. But there was I didn't connect those dots together that, oh, that third glass of wine or whatever, that's what I wanted. I'm like, okay, well, that's what you got.
Jekyll and Hyde.
And it's,
and as you get older, the hangovers just get,
they hang on.
I'd feel a hangover right after 2 glasses when I was trying to perfect the art of moderate drinking. It was not worth it.
Yeah. But yet we think it is. Oh, it's so crazy. Susan, we've got to wrap this up. So I'm going to ask you after this. I mean, I know that there are a lot of people who have gone through AA who, don't want to have a mocktail or anything like that. And that was another reason I didn't want to do Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm not bashing it at all. But for me, I needed to have something, an alcohol-free drink to get me started on this journey. That was something that Matt did as well. Do you have a NA drink that you like?
I have definitely kept the ritual, and I think I look back to the happy parts of my childhood and that break in the day when the ice would clink and I'd make a drink. So that did get me through the early days, and I still have some different things I like today. I would say I'm like the most the Ritual brand of their AF whiskey, and mixing that maybe with a ginger beer, whatever it may be, and a few drops of bitters. And I have to get the Luxardo, Luxardo maraschino cherries. They should have me do a commercial for them because I know I've sold
we have
a few.
Jar in the fridge upstairs, so I'm with you.
They're ridiculously expensive, but they are worth it if you stick to 1 or 2 a day. I have to use cherries responsibly. But yeah, I do that. I mean, I kind of mix up something with that. And I also was never a huge beer drinker, but I like the Athletic Brewing. They just came out, but I found at Whole Foods, their Oktoberfest. Athletic Brewing.
And I was just on their website. Huh.
They had it at my Whole Foods last week sometime. So
awesome.
I enjoy that with the Cleveland Browns game.
Awesome.
Nice.
Oh, this is so good. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so blessed to call you a friend as well. And out of all of this, that I think is the best thing that has come from my alcohol-free journey is all the wonderful people that I now am friends with. And we need to have we need to have a gathering. So hopefully soon. You're not that far from us, so maybe we can do it halfway. sometime.
I know, Chicago sometime.
Hey,
I
to
we
go
can
there.
do
We
that.
know some places.
That would be awesome.
That'd be fun.
Well,
All
great.
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was an awesome interview. I mean, just hits, like you said, on the reality of, you don't have to be under a bridge drinking out of a paper sack to run into troubles, and, her whole story arc is just amazing.
Yeah, it's something that we just need to really be aware of. And, we're not anti-drinking, but I'm very much on this whole, you don't know. It impairs you. And even when you think
We
that
could have
you're
been
not,
her, or you could have been her. Yeah.
very easily.
Yep.
Very easily. And I think her showing her vulnerability to open up and share this is a gift to so many people.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So, but yes,
And
thank
we'll
you
have to get
again.
together. Like we said, we need to get together
Yes,
sometime.
we need to do that.
Lots of friends in the NA world, so
Yes, we're growing.
we're growing.
No, it's not like that.
Well, thank you for growing and learning
Yes.
with us, kids. Is that all you got then?
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you for Susan for the interview. Thank you for hanging around to this point in the podcast. And we are wishing you peace and love in the cornfields. No, that's not how I do it. I'm Matt, along with Coach Amy, wishing you peace and love in the cornfields. And we are
out.